Okay, we've all been there where we just have this one person living in our mind rent free, and they have absolutely no ounce of deserving to take up that space in our minds. And sometimes we go round and round in a loop and we think that it's love, and we think that because we're obsessed with them that they might be obsessed with us, and that's because that's what love is, and that's maybe a sign from the universe. And we just keep running ourselves to the ground, just focusing and obsessing and fixating on a person that honestly doesn't even realize that you're doing that, or has no intention to actually develop anything serious with you. Okay, sometimes this could be you going on a date with one person, maybe once or twice, and you just kind of build this fantasy in your head. And then from then on, they start living in your head rent free. Or this could be someone that you see from a distance, you don't even really actually know, and you develop this crush on them to a point that it becomes so debilitating to you actually focusing on yourself and getting your stuff done. And I'm here to tell you that no, this is not love. This is actually a psychological condition called limerence. And that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. And I'm so excited that you're here because I have quite a few things to say. I really thought this was something that only I struggled with. And then I realized that there's literally no unique experience ever that I have experienced in my life. Every human emotion, human experience that I've had, I have either met someone else who has told me that, hey, I've been through that same thing myself, or I've seen people on social media talk about it. If you're in your 20s or 30s, or even your 40s, really, the way that we have been taught of what love should look like, feel like, a large part of that has come from movies, it has come from music, it's come from social media captions and posts that we see, and we kind of think that love should feel a certain way. And a lot of the times we think that love should feel this kind of adrenaline driven, high, like highly passionate, supercharged, obsessive, all consuming kind of feeling. But I'm here to tell you that that's actually not what healthy love is like. And that's not what you should be looking for, especially if you're dating, or especially if you are on that trajectory to find your person, get married, have kids, so on and so forth. And so we're going to talk a little bit about limerence and what limerence means, and how we can kind of get our mindset shifted to a perspective where we are open to receiving love that's healthy, as well as reciprocative, and as well as peace, and love that feels like peace, and love that's not chaotic, and love that's not all over the place, and love that's not one-sided, and love that's not this all-consuming obsessive thoughts and obsessive feelings you have about a specific person, which most of the time is not even reciprocated. So, welcome to the Mindset Mentress podcast. I am your host, Nikki K. And on this episode, like I said, we're going to be talking about this idea of limerence and how to get that person living in your head rent free out of there for good. The term limerence itself was coined in 1979 by a psychologist named Dorothy Tennove, and she wrote a book called Love and Limerence, which kind of goes into a lot of detail about why we have these phases of limerence. And it really gives us a in-depth understanding from the psychological perspective. However, for this episode, I'm going to kind of give you like the Spark Notes version of it, which basically the book says that limerence is an involuntary obsession with another person that is different from love or lust because it thrives on uncertainty of whether the desired person, also known as a limerent object, desires you back. Almost like a coping mechanism that often arises in people when they have unresolved emotional wounds, childhood wounds, or insecure attachment styles, where they feel like getting lost in this daydream fantasy space feels safer because they're not actually ready to fully commit to somebody in a actual healthy two-sided relationship. And they kind of feel safe in just getting lost in this daydreaming because love for them is actually kind of scary. And so when they get lost in these one-sided relationships where they're just obsessing over someone or daydreaming about someone, they actually kind of feel safe because they know subconsciously that that love is at a distance from them. So, like, you are actually infatuated by someone that you subconsciously know you can never have or will never work out, but you just kind of keep daydreaming about it because you still kind of get like the feel good hormones, like dopamine or oxytocin, of that feel good hormones in your body without actually having to be in a dating relationship or in close proximity with them. So the book actually says that this kind of person that you get so infatuated with is actually called a limerent object, because you literally are desiring them as an object. You project onto the limerent object, which is this other person, all of your fantasies, all of your desires, all of the things that you want in an ideal relationship. And sometimes it even clouds you from actually looking at who that person really is, because you're just so consumed by the fantasy of it all that you just kind of project that, oh, they're a kind person, they're a loving person, they're a generous person, they're this, they're that. But in reality, they are not anything that you may project onto them. And you actually are just doing this because you feel comfortable and you feel good in just sitting back and daydreaming rather than going out there to look for a partner that is actually loving, kind, generous, and all of those things. So the person that's experiencing this limerence gets so fixated on this desire to be desired by this other person rather than actually putting in the time and effort to get to know the desired person. Okay? I mean, we've all been there, right? It's like a lot of times, like, even if we break up with someone, we're just like, okay, this relationship, this guy didn't work out for me. Like, we broke up or he broke up with me. And now your ego gets hurt in a way where you're like, you know what? I don't even know that if I actually want him back or if I just want him to want me. There's a lot of things that are going on in your psyche in the background that causes us to act or think these certain ways, because again, everything comes down to your wounds, your childhood emotional wounds, your adult trauma that you've probably faced, and all these things kind of go hand in hand, which is why it is so important to understand ourselves and understand why we act the way we act, why we do the things we do, why do we want certain things in our lives? Are these things that we desire even something that is good for us, or is it coming from a space of lack and a space of emotional neglect and childhood trauma? And especially when it comes to limerence, the childhood trauma that you kind of are acting upon is the feeling of abandonment, right? So when you feel like you have been abandoned or you have been neglected or you were not seen or given the validation from your parents growing up, you tend to you tend to be most susceptible to limerence because you are looking to fix that void within you in a desired person that you desire wanting you back rather than actually building a healthy relationship for yourself. And like I said, I mean, I thought I was the only one kind of going through this where I would develop these crushes on people that really it was not even worth any space in my mind. And only when I was able to decenter all these other people and put myself on that pedestal, I was able to kind of get that clarity. And which is why I have that clarity now to talk about this, even though it's opening myself up in such a vulnerable way. I have so much clarity and perspective on who I am now. And I've made so much peace with whatever it was in the past that I can openly talk about this because I know it's going to help somebody. Okay. And I know that I'm not the only one. And it's actually, limerence is actually a psychological disorder, although I don't believe it is something that you can be officially medically diagnosed for because there's no diagnosis for it, but it's more of like a subject that researchers have been looking into for a long time. So although you may go to maybe a therapist or a psychiatrist, I don't think you can actually be diagnosed for this limerence, but it's more of like a phenomenon that is observed in the space of psychology. So It's actually far more prevalent in society than we think. And I feel like our understanding of limerence as an attachment dysregulation is really going to be key in overcoming that mental stress that you put upon yourself. And it's interesting because anything that goes on in our minds manifests in our body as well. And if there's anything that we know, that is when we feel stress in our minds, we tend to put on weight, we tend to get puffy and bloated and just feel lethargic and so on and so forth, right? So a lot of the times, this daydreaming that we do, especially when you are affected with limerence, not only is it giving you the positive effects of like dopamine or serotonin or oxytocin while you're feeling those emotions of like high heightened feel good emotions, there's also times where you will be affected with a lot of stress. And so that stress also, like I said, affects you and your body in a very physical way. And that a lot of times shows up as anxiety or mania or sometimes insomnia. It it could also kind of show up as elevated heart rate, restlessness, loss of appetite, and just inability to perform your daily tasks and inability to like just be present and focus in your present moment. Parents also is more likely to affect people with pre-existing conditions like anxiety, depression, obsessive compulsive disorder, also known as OCD, loneliness, and it's definitely something that people with childhood trauma or unmet childhood needs or emotional needs are most likely to get affected by. So we know that it's our attachment style that plays a large role in whether or not we feel limerence. People with insecure attachment styles are most likely to be impacted by limerence, and people also with avoidant attachment styles or anxious attachment styles or fearful avoidant attachment styles are more likely to be drawn into limerence as it feeds into this need that they have for emotional intimacy without actually putting in the work to feel the pleasure of achieving a positive healthy relationship in real life. So one of the main reasons that I think that people struggle with limerence is because they haven't really ever been exposed to healthy love. And I mean, truth is like in today's world with like dating apps and social media, it's really difficult if you think about it to get a clear perspective of what healthy love looks like. Like, to be so honest with you, I don't see a clear blueprint for what healthy relationships look like. And I also think that's because what might be healthy love to me might be or might look like something else to you. And that's why, because there's such a individual experience of what healthy love should look like, there's so much confusion. And especially when you don't have that clear perspective for yourself of what healthy love should be like for you, you kind of will end up looking to create that definition of healthy love by what you see, like I said, on movies and social media and all these other outside sources. You have to sit with yourself to figure out what healthy love is for you and what you want healthy love to feel like. For me, I can tell you, I think for healthy love for me looks like peace, looks like calm, looks like reciprocity. It looks like service to each other, service to the world together. It looks like being calm, compassionate, understanding. So, my idea of healthy love is anchored more in how I feel or how I will feel in a relationship, right? And like I said, that might look different for everybody, and there's really no judgment. And you are the only person that can decide for yourself what healthy love should look like. So, coming back to this topic of limerence, one of the main differences between limerence and real love connection is the emotional stability that you will feel. Okay. A limerent connection does not feel any sense of stability whatsoever. I mean, you're not even in a relationship, right? You're just kind of sitting there daydreaming and hoping that this person was going to want you back. I mean, there's really no relationship there to begin with. So, there's really no stability or emotional stability for yourself, even, right? Just as you as an individual, there's no stability there. Whereas in real love and healthy love, both parties feel that emotional connection and stability that they can anchor themselves in. There's this sense of undeniable loyalty that you will feel towards the other person and vice versa. Friends also thrives on this emotional kind of roller coaster of where in your mind the relationship exists one day and then it disappears the next, right? And it just, I'm saying relationship with very, very blurred lines, because it's not really a relationship. It's just in your mind, right? So like you kind of fantasize about somebody, and one day like you just feel so good in and get so lost in that daydreaming that it's not consistent, and the next day you see something that they may post on social media, or you see that they're hanging out with someone else, or they're doing something fun without you, and you just feel like complete despair the next day. So that's obviously not healthy. That's not any kind of healthy love. I don't even think at that point you're able to develop a healthy love with that person, because you're just so invested and so emotionally invested to a point where you are projecting all these feelings and desires onto this other person that they are not really even aware of, or they're not even someone who embodies all of those things. Even if you were to try to build a relationship with this person, it's not going to 90% of the time, I don't think it's going to work out, because you have already developed this fantasy about them, and they will 1,000% fall short of that, because it's just not possible. It's just not possible for someone to match this fantasy that you've created about them. And I don't think you either will be able to meet someone else's fantasy about you. I mean, end of the day, we're all humans. And I think expectations leads to a lot of disappointment. But this doesn't mean standards. Of course, standards and boundaries are important, but manage your expectations. Be a little bit flexible with your expectations. Be able to communicate openly and honestly with the other person. But anyway, this is about limerence. This is not about healthy love. This is about understanding limerence. And so, yeah, so instead of looking for that toxicity and looking for that up and down roller coaster kind of feeling that you have, you need to ground yourself. You need to really ground yourself and anchor yourself in reality and anchor yourself in what it is that you really want. Be so honest with yourself, and if you even want a relationship, or if so, what kind of relationship you want, and then go after the real deal. So once you have limerence, are you going to be affected forever? That's usually no, like I said at the beginning of this episode. Most people, when they're struggling with limerence or affected with limerence, they just kind of have this idea to have this limerent object. And once a certain threshold of that desirability of that limerent object has passed, they will just move on to the next limerent object. Okay, so like that's like someone who kind of monkey bars from kind of like someone who monkey bars from relationship to relationship, but except this is not really a real relationship. They're just monkey barring from one crush to the other. And it's a very unhealthy pattern, right? It's a very unhealthy pattern because, again, it's not grounded in any kind of reality. So, one of the main differences between healthy love and limerence is that the limerent object usually loses its glimmer and shimmer after a certain period of time. However, with healthy love, that is built over time. Okay, so you see the difference? With limerent objects, like over time, the desirability level just kind of goes down and you just kind of lose interest in that person. Versus in healthy love, it actually kind of takes time to build up, to get to know that person, and then you slowly build that love, that affection and infatuation over time. And that's how it's healthy. And of course, it's both sided. You're not the only one daydreaming or fantasizing about someone. They also are putting in the effort to get to know you, to spend time with you, to actually build something together. And what this might look like, it looks like going on dates together, phone calls, texting, open, honest communication, consistency, and all those good things. So, understanding the fundamental differences between limerence and love will just kind of allow you to get a basic understanding of what you're dealing with in hand. Sometimes you may go out on a date with one person, maybe on one date, two dates, and just become consumed in this fantasy about them being the one. And I think it's also like societal pressure of for women especially, right? That we need to find the one. And over time I'm realizing that the one doesn't really exist. I think that they're just people that are meant to be in your life, will come into your life, and it might be for a season or forever, we don't know. But putting that kind of pressure of this person being the one puts you in a very tricky situation, a very slippery slope to fall into a state of limerence. So you always have to be aware, be self aware enough to understand and realize what is going on inside of you and in your psyche and catch yourself before you fall into this deep rabbit hole. And you will come out of it, but why do you want to put yourself through that kind of suffering when you can actually be out there spending time with people that actually want to get to know you and you can actually build a fulfilling life with them? So, how do you recover from limerence? So, with any kind of addiction, and I do think limerence is addictive, obsessive thinking over someone, and I do think it's an addiction. The way to heal this, just like with any addiction, is by starving the source. Okay. You need to starve the source. You need to kind of get rid of your interaction with the source. You need to get rid of always following what they're doing in their lives. You don't need to know, you don't need to look at their stories. You don't need to be so involved with what they're doing with their lives. You don't need to be texting them and you don't need to have that close proximity with them. Okay. So, in the case of limerence, I think the best starting point to starve the connection or the source is training yourself and your mind and your body to not crave that dopamine hit you may get from them by daydreaming about them. Okay, so this could look like limiting, like I said, direct contact with them, going off of social media, not following their stories, posting a story so they see it, because that is also a source of dopamine hit. I mean, how many times have you posted a story just for that one person to see it? Right? I mean, that's just so exhausting. That is exhausting. I mean, I'll tell you because I know I've been there and it's not fun. It's really not fun. It kind of takes away your focus from what you need to do. It takes away the focus from you and putting it onto someone else. And you just kind of lose that sense of yourself. And it's not cute. It's not cute. It's not cute. So yeah, so limiting your engagement with them on social media and not maybe blocking them from your stories because you don't want them to see your stories because that's also going to give you a dopamine hit. So being aware of all these little places where you can be triggered is going to be so important. And like I said, it is an addiction, right? So it's not going to be easy for you to just kind of block them from your stories or block them completely. But know that that's something you are working towards. Okay. When the trigger comes up, stop yourself from maybe engaging with that source. Stop yourself from maybe checking their stories. Or if you are trying to post a story, ask yourself, like, am I posting the story for myself, for all of my viewers, or just for this one person? Okay. And then based on how you feel about that and what your answer is, and be so honest with yourself, you now have direction of what you need to do. Okay. Remember that the recovery is going to be hard. Addiction filled behavior is hard. I mean, we're all addicted to our phones and now we're trying to like not look at our phones as much. But yeah, I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy. We're all addicted in some ways to something. And when we talk about addiction, right? It's not just alcohol or drugs, but it's also our phones, it's also social media, and it's also sometimes a person. So just be mindful and just be aware of what you're signing up for. So now, once you've starved that source, what do you do? Right? So now you have to fill up that space with things that you actually enjoy doing. Okay. So replacing the time you spent daydreaming about these people with actual real life hobbies that you actually enjoy doing. So that could be going to the gym, like taking a yoga class, starting dance classes, or traveling, whatever it might be that's going to fill up that space or that time where you just sit there daydreaming, doing nothing. You got to fill that up with things that are actually exciting to you. So, like building a a new daily routine that you're actually excited about, starting like a meal prep thing that you want to do, or cooking healthier meals for yourself, or going after a new career. I mean, the options are just so endless. And it's interesting that the minute you just kind of shove everyone else off the pedestal and you put yourself on that pedestal, it's amazing the things that you can do for yourself. It's amazing the things you will discover about yourself, all your new hobbies that you're going to enjoy doing, and you will start glowing, okay? You will have a real glow up because now you're taking away that attention you've been giving away so freely, and you're taking away that sense of need for other people's validation, and you kind of give it all to yourself. And when you bring back all that energy and focus it upon yourself internally, oh my goodness, the things that you can do are just endless. Incredible things, okay? So instead of focusing your time daydreaming about other people, daydream about the life that you want to create. Daydream about the kind of career you want to succeed in, the kind of service you want to do for the world, the kind of body that you want to have. And all of these things are possible, and our energies are just so precious. Our energy is so strong and beautiful that when we put our minds to something with so much intention and focus behind it, we can achieve anything we want to achieve and more. And you start to begin building your dream life. And then the people that, when you're on this path of building your dream life, it'll be interesting the kind of people that you meet will also be like minded people who also vibe with you and really enjoy being in your presence. And now all of a sudden, you're grounding yourself in this reality and you're here as a human being fully participating in this life. And that's not to say there's not going to be any down days. Of course, there's going to be downs and lows, but there's also going to be highs, and there's going to be some really cool things you achieve. And of course, there's going to be failure as well, but all of that will be anchored in the real you. And that's the most beautiful, beautiful part. And once you've built this dream life and your internal world just becomes such a beautiful place to just relax and be in, if it's for you, you might meet other romantic partners that are actually aligned with who you really are. Because in the past, you didn't really know who you were. And so you were looking for love and validation and attention from all these other sources. And you were so desperate to be wanted and liked by other people that you failed to look at yourself. But now, after you've given yourself enough time to heal and you're able to look at yourself and you truly love who you are, guess what? The world is a mirror, the universe is a mirror. It's going to reflect back to you the people who also love who you are. Okay? And am I telling you that you should go on this journey of healing and self development so you'll meet a romantic partner? No. I mean, you may meet them, you may not meet them, but that's not the point, right? The point is you have this connection with yourself that is anchored in reality to give you the confidence to go and build a healthy romantic relationship if that is what you want. And the lack of it isn't going to make you any less than either. It is this understanding that you are whole and complete on your own. And if a romantic partner who is aligned with you and who you really are comes into your life, you explore that. Okay? But that's not the end all be all of who you are because you are so whole and validated on your own. So, if you are someone that struggled with limerence or is struggling with limerence, where you feel like you're getting lost in fantasy land of a person or of a potential love interest, there's no shame. Okay, I want to let you know that there's no shame. There's no need for guilt. There's no need to feel low and bad about yourself, and definitely not to feel like you're the victim. Like I always say, I feel like the victim mindset is the worst kind of thing that you can do for yourself because it's a almost a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where you feel bad and then it kind of perpetuates you to do low vibe behavior, like eating bad food, not working out, just doom scrolling all day and just getting lost in that. And then you feel bad about all those behaviors that it kind of perpetuates you to further do more of that bad behaviors and continue to feel bad about yourself. So that's the cycle that I don't want for you to be a part of. Okay. And if you are in that cycle, know that just like anything else in life, you can overcome it. You can break that cycle. You can break that pattern. And you truly have the power to become who you really want to be in this life. And we all get one life. And I always keep coming back to that. We all get one life, and we all have the power within us to make that one life really beautiful and meaningful and successful in whatever that means to us. So, getting to the root cause of why you're feeling the way you feel, especially when it comes to limerence, is the first step in overcoming it. And secondly, because limerence is such a mind focused addiction, like I said, grounding yourself in healthy activities and hobbies is really a way for you to give yourself a mental break. Okay. And checking yourself regularly. When you start acting a little crazy, check yourself and ask yourself, is this real love? Why am I fixated on this person? Why do I want this relationship to work out so bad? Those kind of thought patterns are actually very self-sabotaging, and it actually kind of hinders you to go after the real kind of romance that you deserve. And like I always say, we all are deserving of love, and we're all deserving of kindness and calmness and peace and the lives that we want for ourselves. So I hope this was able to kind of help you in some way in understanding limerence, understanding what healthy love should look like, and also giving you the chance and the opportunity for yourself to take the time and the space you need to build the life that you truly want to live, which is grounded in reality. We love spirituality. Yes, we love meditating and we love all of that. We love prayer and yoga and all things spiritual. But we also need to ground ourselves in reality. We need to get connected to our bodies. We need to control our minds, and we need to check ourselves. Okay, this is not just a mind or soul journey, it's also very much a body journey. And mind, body, and soul, I mean, all three things have to be working together and all need to be balanced. So, with that, this is Nikki K signing out, and I will see you next week with another episode. Bye, guys.